What I want to talk about today is I want to share 8 bars that exist to asylum, and you're going to want to know and understand them. This is what I want to talk about. These are the bars to asylum. The first bar that would prohibit you from getting asylum is what we call the 1-year bar. What it says is, hey, if you have entered the United States and you are requesting asylum, you've got to file asylum within 1 year of your most recent entry. If you don't do that, then they're going to deny your case. But there are 2 exceptions. The first exception is for what they call exceptional circumstances, exceptional or extraordinary circumstances. For example, if you have been hospitalized or sick, or you were suffering something personally that prevented you from filing your case, that can count as an exception. You were planning on filing for asylum to meet the 1-year filing deadline, but in the last 3 months you were fighting with you were fighting with cancer or something along those lines, and then then you got better, and then you filed asylum, and it was a little bit late. You filed maybe 3 months after the 1-year mark. Then you can show the hospitalization. You can show the issues that you were dealing with, and you can request an exception to the 1-year filing deadline based on that. So the first exception is exceptional circumstances. Got that? Good. The second exception to the 1-year filing deadline is what we call changed circumstances. And here we're talking about a serious change in your home country. Maybe there's a new political regime in your home country, or there's a new law that's now going to target you that wasn't going to target you before. Maybe you've been living in the country in the United States for years, and now there's some new law or some new dictator or some new regime because of your political opinion, or now because of your sexual identity or orientation. Now you really are afraid? Well, okay, that can be an exception. Asylum law understands that. And so you can file your case, but you've got to file within 6 months. So there's a time limit. The second bar is what we call the particularly serious crime bar. And my best advice there is if you have any conviction, if you have any arrest, period, you're going to want to talk about it with a lawyer before you file your case, because it can affect the discretionary element, and it can and in some instances it can even bar you, period. It can prohibit you from getting asylum if it's serious enough, a quote unquote particularly serious crime bar. The third bar is what we call the firm resettlement bar. All right. And so imagine here is if you imagine you have a permit, or imagine you have the equivalent of a green card in some other country. Well, then you don't need asylum in the U.S. Now, if you fear persecution from both places, then by all means, right, we can file for asylum here. The fourth bar is the security bar. So if you are deemed to be a danger to national security or a danger to the security of the United States, then you will be barred from asylum. The fifth bar is if you've ever persecuted others. We call it the persecutors of others bar. So if you have ever, harmed some other person on account of that person's race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group, then you will be barred, prohibited from filing for asylum. The sixth bar is if you've ever materially supported terrorism. And it's actually bigger than that. After 9/11 happened, the terrorism-related bars have increased. So, if you are the spouse or child of someone who has materially supported terrorism, then you will be barred from asylum. All right. If there's anything related to terrorism for yourself or for anyone in your family, talk about it with a lawyer before you file your case. The seventh is if you've previously applied for asylum in the U.S. and if that was denied. Don't file multiple times. If you file once, file well, do the best job you possibly can so that you don't have to file multiple times. Because if you filed before and now it's like, oh, but I forgot to say this, or I forgot to argue that. No, you're going to get denied. All right. You're barred. And then the eighth one I want to explain. All right. The eighth one I call the Trump bars. Donald Trump has been against and was against asylum laws and the asylum process throughout his whole presidency. And he's really against all immigration. He created, and his administration created, what we call a third country transit bar, which means that if you're arriving to the United States and you traveled through some other country, say you're arriving to the United States, you're originally from Guatemala, but in order to get to the United States, you had to have traveled through Mexico. So what this bar said is that in order to claim asylum in the United States, you had to have first claimed asylum in Mexico. All right, you're going through a third country. Why didn't you file asylum there? That's been deemed illegal. Like, that bar is stopped. It doesn't actually comply with US law. Part of that bar also was like, okay, if you entered without inspection between ports of entry, you'll be barred from asylum. Those regulations also say, some of the Trump regulations also say, hey, if you have any felony conviction against you of domestic violence, whether felony or misdemeanor, any drug offense, any other crimes, those will bar you also. And it'll bar you from that discretionary element for asylum. Some of those bars were not implemented. And so, hey, if you entered the country without inspection, it's wise to really have a conversation. Give our office a call. Let's talk through it, because you want to know the risks involved. You want to know where you're at. If you, have a conviction in the past, it's why, please have a full consultation, have a full legal review with myself, with my team, so that we can give you good advice as to whether or not you should file your case. All right. If you traveled through a third country before arriving to the U.S., there's an injunction against it right now, and I do believe that it will not move forward. I do believe it's illegal under clear Section 208 of the Immigration Nationality Act. Allows all immigrants, all aliens, they call it, in U.S. soil to allow for it to apply for asylum. These are the bars. If your father or mother or something, contributed to some organization that later in your country was deemed to have supported terrorism in some way, right? Like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. You don't want to get barred from it. Same, if you have a conviction or any arrest, let's talk about it, because you don't want to file your case and then just have it found that you're barred. You can't win your asylum case. Hope this was helpful. These are the bars to asylum. I'm Otis Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C, where we fight for your American dream. All right, bye-bye.